our deadline is June 30th. Our tax collectors are ready to send out tax bills on July 1st, so we aren't given the luxury of being able to wait. A lot of cascading and downstream things happen after you approve the budget. So I shared in the Budget and Finance Committee, the governor's asking for $1.5 billion for basic education funding. My professional organization has a legacy and advocacy arm in those efforts. We were given templates on how to predict our numbers because the basic ed formula is such a complicated formula. And I settled on $375 million and then put our numbers in the template and added that to the budget. So we increased state funding by that amount. It may come in higher, it may come in lower, but I hope I made a good guesstimate of that. If it comes in higher, we've had some talks internally about earmarking some of those monies for future projects, but when we get to that, we can talk about that once we see what we get. If we're short, there is a small reserve built into the budget, and we do have some reserves if we're short, we're going to capture it that way. So hopefully I split the difference and made some good guesstimates. Local revenues did go up between proposed, final, and final. I get a certified amount from the county in May. I then reached back out after I got the certified and asked if they could give me a better update. So I was able to increase local revenues a little bit more. So all that being said, the budget has a 0.047 tax increase. The board had the ability through Act 1 to go to a 0.4063 increase. Because state funding is so unstable, it really wasn't prudent to expect all of that without knowing what monies we're going to get. That will leave us a surplus of $127,775. What that means to a taxpayer is a $200,000 house that's $9.42 a year or 78 cents a month. A house that's assessed at $400,000, that's $18.84 a year or $157 a month. So you just take your assessed value in that and figure out where you are in that. Hopefully the board will approve the budget on June 29th and we can let the tax collectors know and move forward with that. The other item that's on the agenda for this evening is the homestead farmstead exclusion. For the first time since homestead farmstead has come into inception, our amount has changed, and this year we got $1.1 million, which we initially budgeted at the beginning of the year as part of local revenues, and then once the state certifies that those gaming revenues, because gaming revenues were off the chart this year, we get monies, it moves from local to state, and we typically get around $925,000, about $1.1 million this year. Once I did the homestead calculation, what that means to our taxpayers who have filed a homestead farmstead exclusion with the county, they'll get $129 off of their assessed value. 129.77 off of their assessed value. That's a discount to their taxes this year. So I think that you'll see those later in the minutes, but if there are any questions, I'll go stop and answer them now.
Jodi, I want to thank you very, very much. We had numerous budget finance committee meetings, and you shot for that military. Of course, you're going to have a new $85 million school be up in October, and the tax raise on that is going to be less than $1 million. Outstanding. Thank you.
Yeah, I know I missed a couple of budget and finance meetings, but I received the materials, I reviewed them. I had a very long talk with Samantha earlier this morning. We talked about not only the issues she's identified here, but also other ones. I'm really disturbed by the size of this budget, being a 6% increase overall is something that it's not even been, we haven't had a budget like this even close in the last few years, and I understand all the reasoning behind it, and if it wasn't for things like expected extra money from the state, etc., I would probably be compelled to vote against the budget. However, I'm convinced because of the work that's been done and the trust that we have in our business office to give us good financial advice overall, I'll vote for it. I do want to mention just a couple things that I think that concern me. One is the assumptions on fuel prices and inflation, you know, we had to pick numbers for the purpose of generating the reports, and, you know, there are educated guesses, and they're very educated guesses, but I'm worried that we may be undershooting those numbers, and that could have an issue for us down the line. I'm also extremely concerned, not for this year, not for next year, but the fact that the effect that this EASER's money is going to have is the same effect that the ARA, the American Recovery Act, monies had back in 2009, 10, 11, 12, where when all that free federal money dried up, all of a sudden there was a drop in funding from the state of $1 billion across the state. I have a real fear that we push our budget up as high as we're talking about pushing it up this year. We get used to the type of spending and recurring costs we push into the budget, and then to have a drop off in 2 years, 3 years, like we saw a decade ago, it could be a significant problem in the future. And I think that it's incumbent on everybody sitting at this table to make sure we are mindful of that moving forward, so that when we get 2 or 3 years down the line, we understand that money goes by. So when the ARA monies went away, we had that year where a certain number of teachers had traded out, we didn't replace them, we had a contraction and a reassignment of programming, and I think it's the only time in the last 15, 20 years that we've actually done that. I'm really worried that we're going to see the exact same thing once the free federal money stops flowing into our coffers. So thank you once again, Ms. Mansmann, for doing your job and doing it probably as better as anyone in the business at this point. But it's concerning. 2007, 2008, the budget of this school district was $38 million. In 2020, it's $101 million. I don't think we should ever lose track of the fact that we're in charge of a very, very large amount of taxpayer money.
I shared that slide with the Budget and Finance Committee from the ARA funds because it is significant. And I also mentioned, that I didn't mention to you on the call today, it would have been in the minutes, that I do anticipate tax increases the years the funds dry up. Because what Mr. Zepancic says is true. Usually, not only does the federal money dry up, but the state money, they give us less than they would have given us because they're getting state money as well as they're passing through us. So I did convey that at the Budget and Finance meeting that while we see a modest tax increase here, I am expecting down the road there to be bigger ones.
What about the audit?
Very good timing. They reached out to me today. I have actually yesterday, I have a Zoom call tomorrow with the senior auditor and the director. Hopefully I have some information after that call to pass along. It's only with me. One of my questions is, will they be interviewing anyone else? When will the report be published? One of the other schools that are part of the performance arch reached out to me today, and their call was tomorrow too. So it seems like we're all on deck. So I'll let you know how it goes.
Have you gotten any feedback from other school districts as to what they faced the audit?
Well, so none of us we've all received similar, yes. We meet as a group. We meet with PSBA, PASA, and my organization, PASBO. We meet every time we get our request for information, and we collaborate. I mean, obviously, our questions are unique to our school districts, but we've been asked similar questions so far. There were 4 RFIs. This is the 5th request. It's now an interview, which I've been asking them to do because I think they need some context, given some of the questions that they had asked. We haven't got any feedback because we were told at the onset of the audit that they're going to do a final report with all of us. So I do anticipate, as any audit, that there may be some recommendations. And just like our local audit, we welcome those if there's ways that we can gain efficiencies. They told us initially July, so I'm hoping that this is my exit audit, or my exit interview, but I don't know. But I will definitely update you as soon as I find out where to go.
Any other questions for Jodi? Thank you, Jodi.
Yeah, I just want to touch on the highlights and unfortunately a low light. Our transportation department and construction projects, we have a lot of them. So So the transportation side, every summer, the state police come in and they inspect all of our buses. That typically happens always mid-July. And last summer, this summer, they kind of moved us up to the end of June. That week is this week. Puts a little bit of pressure on our mechanics in the garage. Obviously, that shortened time period to get everything prepared for inspection. Especially this summer, we're one short, so we usually have 4 mechanics on staff. Right now, we have 3. But to this point, we're 3 days in. It's a full week process. There have been no issues on the inspections, so that's going as planned, and hopefully we don't run into any snags by the end of the week. Maintenance side, we do have a lot of projects going on. I'll start with the sport facility, which I feel like has been going on for way too long at this point. But there is light at the end of the tunnel. The carport structures are going to be finished by the end of next week. That has been by far the longest stretch of this, and we couldn't get material, and we couldn't get workers, and kind of really stretch us out a year past our completion date. But by the end of next week, the structure will be complete. So that leaves the work is paving on the bottom lot, bullet installation, and landscaping. That total work combined is 2 weeks, so we have a 3-week time frame for total completion at the sport facility. The second